Hello, everyone. I am Scott Kober, one of the co-producers of CME Palooza, and I would like to welcome you to our special 10 Years in 10 Minutes feature. This is one of our 10 anniversary features where we are looking back at the dawn of CME Palooza by catching up with some of the people who participated in our very first year of live broadcast. And I'm joined here today by one of them, Allison Gardner. Allison, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are and where you are?
Sure. Thanks, Scott, for having me. I'm Allison Gardner. I'm Senior Vice President of Educational Strategy and Content with MedIQ. I just had my 15th year anniversary with MedIQ earlier this year. So it's been a very good run. In my day job, I still am involved in creating content and drafting strategy for our grants that we put out into the world, for the education that we create. But I certainly have evolved a bit and am involved in all aspects of MedIQ's business, also in our patient safety risk management realm. We've been, as all of you may know, very involved in putting education out on social media and talking a lot about that. So certainly I've been up on many podiums recently with my good wonder twin, Allison Kickle, but always love participating in things like this.
Yeah, you mentioned that you've been there for 15 years. It was funny, like looking back at the CME Palooza agendas from 10 years ago. There are so few people who are where they were 10 years ago. The fact that you are still there, it really is amazing. So then back in 2013, you presented during our very first CME Palooza Fall on the topic of have we forgotten about the content in continuing medical education? What do you remember about that initial CME Palooza experience?
I remember that was the first time that I ever used a Google Hangout. And that was a really new experience being on kind of like a video virtual interface, which is super weird to think about today when this is like what I do all day. All of my meetings were by phone calls then and never really by this. So I remember that feeling really new and exciting and kind of intimidating. But I also remember it was really easy and just really fun. So yeah, I think those are the highlights.
So then looking back at that presentation 10 years later, what is still relevant about that topic today and how much has changed in the intervening years?
So I went back and I watched it kind of, 1.5x, which is another cool innovation. And so much of what we talked about, that panel talked about, was learner centricity and how can we design education that really puts the learner at the middle of it. How do we design for them, not just create something to serve to them? So a lot of it was talking about how do we listen to what they ask, what they need. How do we deliver it in a way that makes it easy and consumable? And there was even comments about like, man, we are just constantly barraged with content all the time. And I feel like that's been dialed up to 11 over the last 10 years. And so we really have to deal with all of the same themes that came up in that panel discussion. So it's incredibly relevant. I wasn't quite sure what to expect when I kind of went back for a little bit of a refresher on it. But a lot of what we discussed, I mean, we're still trying to crack that nut even today, just as technology has advanced. But it was all about being in service to our learners. And I feel like that's the pursuit that we all still engage in.
Now, you've been a part of a variety of CME Palooza presentations over the years. Anything else that you remember that kind of sticks out in your memory as a highlight, a low light, a blooper that you've been a part of?
A highlight certainly is the people. Especially that first panel. There was 3 panelists and me, and it was a great way to meet people and create connections in this kind of virtual setting. And I think a lot of the panels do that. I really like how it brings people from different roles together to have conversations, and that so many different perspectives are covered. So that certainly was alive and well from the beginning. And I think CME Palooza, you, Scott, and Derek have done a great job continuing to bring in everybody's voice to the sessions. There was a blooper. I think it was also a session that year with Karen Roy. There was a power issue. She was having like a massive storm around her.
I still remember that. Yeah.
And, for us in CME for a long time, used to like the live meeting setting where it's like you're always ready for things to go sideways. When that was one of those first times that I had really been participating in something virtual like this, you also have to be light on your feet and ready to pivot and have a plan B in this virtual setting too. So I remember it, we got through it and everything was good, but those gremlins, whether they take hold when you're in a room together or if you're in a virtual setting, they always are around. So I think it just helps us to remember just to be prepared really for anything.
Okay, so interesting. You're talking about weather. Here comes your non-CME question. This is sort of a weather-related question, a little bit. So you are born and raised in Chicago, which is obviously known as the Windy City for good reason. So tell me about your favorite cold weather story growing up in Chicago.
I had a conversation with my mom relatively recently that I don't know if I have this memory so strong because of I remember it, or if it was the pictures, that I remember looking through in family photo albums when those were a thing. But in 1979, there was a massive blizzard in Chicago, and the snow was so high on the sides of our driveway at the house. We had a ranch house. You could stand on top of the snow and basically just get up onto the roof. The snow was so tall, and it was like this epic slide at our house. So like I said, I don't remember if I have the strong memory because I remember sliding down. I think I do. But certainly the pictures were there to memorialize it. Just how incredibly deep that snow is. And then when my daughter was maybe 5, the snow wasn't that big, but I think we got, 3.5 feet of snow. It was one of those President's Day weekend storms. And there's a picture of her standing, they had shoveled, and I opened the front door and was taking a picture. And the snow was almost, as tall as she was. So it's the real deal around here. I say Chicago is a great city. The winter really, keeps a lot of the riffraff out, right? You got to want to love and be here through that if you are a committed Chicagoan, which I am. I moved to Maryland for 8 years and lived in Baltimore, but felt the pull back, and I came back and I love it. So clearly the snow does not bother me.
Okay. So one last question. So why do you think CME Palooza is still around here in 2024, 10 years after we began? What did we do right initially, and what hopefully are we still doing right today?
I think, you guys were really ahead of the curve in terms of making a day that is so accessible, right? So we don't have to travel anywhere. We can look at sessions through the day. We can put them onto our calendar, but if we miss it because inevitably that meeting pops up or whatever, we can watch it afterward. And so it's always been there as something that is so easy to engage with. So that's one thing that I think really has created the stickiness of it, that you guys just make it so easy to participate in it and watch it and engage with it. The other thing too is that it brings really important topics to our community, to the table. It brings those different voices in to all just raise all boats, right? Like we're all trying to help each other, and it's fun. Like it's relaxed, it's casual, but it really hits at a lot of those issues that we're struggling with, that we're trying to address, a lot of the AI technology coming into the fold. So I know for me, I really appreciate all the timeliness and all the inclusivity and diversity of voices that you bring in. So that's why I think it's been so successful.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Allison. It was really good to catch up. And while you won't see this Allison as part of CME Palooza Fall on Wednesday, October 16th, you will see lots of women whose first names start with the letter A. We're talking Alex's, Audrey's, Allison's, Andrea's, Amy's, Anne's, Alana's, and there's probably something I missed. It's one of these weird quirks of our industry.
The A team is strong. The A team is strong.
So you can find all of the information about our fall agenda on the CME Palooza website at www.cmepalooza.com. Thanks again, Allison.
Thank you.